Hi, I'm DeVon Franklin, producer of the new movie Miracles from Heaven and co-author of the New York Times best-selling book, The Wait, and you are watching iSTANDtv. Don't turn, don't move, stay right here.
Hey everyone, it's Mallory Hagan. I'm here with iSTANDtv, and we are here with Mr. DeVon Franklin. He's an author, a producer, an executive, a husband, extraordinaire, and just an all-around pretty awesome human being based on your Google, essentially.
Okay. All right. Well, Google knows everything, right?
Google, the internet knows everything.
There you go. There you go.
I had a chance to just hear him speak about his journey and his career and Miracles from Heaven, which is coming out next week. Really exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
I had a chance to preview. I tell you, it's a remarkable story about faith and hope and struggle and triumph. And so we're really looking forward to that. My question to you to start is that Jennifer Garner, star of the movie, has recently been really open about the fact that this has sort of renewed her faith and made her realize what she's modeling for her children. How does it feel to know that your work in this industry, which you just described can be thought of as sinful, is changing lives in that way?
It is a deep validation of purpose. It's one of the reasons why I got into the business. It's what I aspire to do every day. And I think that's the untold story about content like this. And I think sometimes in Hollywood, we get so focused on the bottom line and the profit margins and all that, that we miss that this is a medium that is a transformative experience and can transform lives and unlock destiny and unlock purpose and bring people back to God. And bring people back to a place where they remember, wow, I'm not here alone, and miracles are real, and heaven does exist, and there's a God that loves me. I mean, all of these things are things that can happen through film and television and media and whatnot. So that story about Jennifer that she had shared with me before it went public, it's deeply gratifying because it's more than just a movie. It's about real life.
Yeah, I think it's truly remarkable to see that people have that sort of reaction when often I don't think people realize that film and television have that opportunity. Yeah. So with that being said, you're extremely inspirational, obviously, pastor. Who do you turn to for mentorship or guidance when you feel at a loss or down?
God has really blessed me with a number of mentors and friends, people that I can turn to when I need guidance, as you asked. I mean, one of the people that I turn to is my wife. She's incredibly knowledgeable and just a great inspiration and a wonderful person to be able to talk through things. Also, Will Smith. He's a friend, a mentor. I started interning for him at 18 years old, and he's always been there to really help me when I needed the most. People like T.D. Jakes, who we produced Miracles from Heaven together. He's somebody that I turn to and ask for advice. Tyler Perry. I mean, there are a number of people. One of my aunts, Aunt Donna. There's so many people God has blessed me with to be able to have advice, and it's so important to ask for advice. This is the first movie I've ever produced. So, as much as I have worked on films, I've been an executive for over 10. I was an executive for over 10 years, and just recently quit to start my own company. And this is the first movie underneath that company. So, even though I was an executive, I know about films. I'd never produced day-to-day before.
Absolutely.
So I asked a lot of questions. I sought a lot of help because I don't want to go into something just not being honest about the fact I need help. Absolutely. And I think that's okay. I think sometimes we have too much pride. When you need help, you got to ask for help. And what I found is the people that are the most powerful and the most successful are the ones that ask for the most help.
Well, that's definitely a lesson I think everyone needs to learn for sure.
Right.
Congratulations on this being your first movie.
Thank you.
You mentioned Bishop Jakes, and I watched an interview that you guys did, and I can't remember his exact quote, but it basically was that you guys were talking about going to church and how people get turned away from going to church because of the things that other people are doing or saying while you're there. And he basically said once you've matured in your Christianity, you won't be worried about that. So at what point do you think that happened for you? At what point were you like, I don't care what's going on with anyone else around me. I am mature in my thought and in my faith. And at what point did that happen?
That's a good question. I've grown up in the church my whole life, and not just as a congregant, but a participant. So, when you participate, and I started preaching when I was 15 and, still preach to this day, when you've been around it enough, you stop looking at church as a museum and you see it as a hospital. So when you're in an emergency room and somebody over here has a broken leg and the other person's coughing and this person, is in pain, that's not surprising to you. You know where you are. And sometimes when people are in pain, they do things that they otherwise wouldn't if they weren't in pain. And so having that perspective for me has really helped me deal with church and comments and all that stuff, because it's like, you know what? Hey, everybody's in a different walk in their place. Everybody's in a different place in their walk, in their journey. And sometimes when you're in a certain place, depending on how you're feeling about your own life, you might lash out. And, but it doesn't stop me from enjoying the experience of the institution, because I like church. I enjoy it. I enjoy the people. I enjoy the culture. And so knowing that there still is that element, it's okay. It's like, all right, you know what? I'm going to deal with it the way Christ would, and try to deal with it, which is in love and in kindness, and try to embrace it, because I enjoy the experience so much. I don't want anybody to get me out of it. And sometimes the enemy does his best work when he gets people out of church, because sometimes when you get out of church, that's one of the first steps to get you out of God.
Right. Well, you brought up your wife, Megan, earlier,
Yes.
and you guys just released a book in February.
Yep.
But I think that you guys have this remarkable example that you've set for marriage. Granted, I don't know you, but again, Google.
Yeah.
But I have a question.
Yeah.
Surely you're not perfect.
No.
What is
No
it that
way.
you do that just annoys her to no end?
I leave my stuff around, I make a shake every morning, and my kind of green power shake, and sometimes I'll leave the blender a mess in the sink and not put water in it. That totally,
So then it's crusty. And
yes, it totally annoys her. Yeah, those are the two things: leaving the blender in the sink with no water, and leaving my stuff out.
Totally understand.
Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate you talking with us today.
Thank you.
iSTANDtv really wants to help people be stronger, better people. And so I know that you stand for your faith. That's very apparent. I'd love to know, what else do you stand for?
I stand for peace, empowerment, career advancement, love, community, compassion. I mean, these are all things that I try to stand for and to help people in day to day.
Obviously, the entertainment industry, as we discussed earlier, is a really tough place to maintain your faith and to make the right decision and the right moral decision and follow your path. How often do you feel that you're put in that situation? I know that you started your own production company, so hopefully it'll be a little less now that you're not working for other people. But how often do you find yourself in that position where you're having to really step back and examine your beliefs and if what you're doing is in line with them?
Yeah, I think that there's a misnomer that doing that is more difficult than entertainment. It's not. Doing that day to day is difficult for anyone who is in entertainment or out of entertainment, because we all have a desire,
Right.
and we all have a want, and that want is also a liability, because that is the area where we begin to, in our mind, how can I get what I want? And in that figuring out is where the compromise comes from, the temptation comes from. You can't be tempted by something you don't want. So your wants, as great as they are also the areas where you can really mess up.
Yeah.
So I don't buy the idea that Hollywood is a harder place to manage your wants than anywhere else. So for me, on a day-to-day basis, the thing that is the most challenging is ambition. It's like, man, I'm great, I have my own company, but I want to be bigger, and I want to do more films, and I want to increase. And so the management of that is a personal thing with me and God, which is God always is in my ear. Are you chasing me? Are you chasing it? So what? You're a bigger producer. Okay. How does that make your life better?
One of the things that you said was that God always has, can't remember the exact wording, the ability to give you a reality check.
Yeah.
How often do you feel like that happens for you?
All the time, because we I think are predisposed to want to control, and so, but God is in control. So when you try to control what only God can control, then there's conflict.
He laughs at you.
He laughs. So every day I feel like, especially with Miracles from Heaven, the movie's getting ready to come out, and I put my heart and soul into the film and praying that it works. And so he has to constantly remind me. Yeah, you might have produced it, but I used you to do that. It's not your movie. It's their story. And I use the beams to tell a story that would help change people's lives. This is what God says to me. So do your work and be a good steward over what I've given you. But don't take so much ownership, or try to take so much ownership to the degree where you begin to think in your mind that you did this.
You did this, yeah.
And if you didn't do it, then that means the result isn't in your hand, it's in my hand. That's what God says. Perfect. So understanding that, it's a day-to-day struggle. Because I believe in faith without works is dead. So I'm like, okay, Lord, am I doing enough works? Am I having enough faith? Am I working so hard because I don't have faith? All of that psychology of managing the want and the ambition is really a day-to-day thing. And at every moment, depending on what I want and where I believe I need to be, there's always that temptation to do something outside of Him. And I think that's the other thing about the idea of temptation and compromise is sometimes we look at it and we're waiting for like, oh, the big thing to happen, where we're like, oh no, I'm not going to do that. But you don't get off track usually in big ways. They're the little ways,
the little decisions that you make
that add up over time. So by the time you get to the big thing, you are already so off track. The big thing doesn't seem that big anymore. It's a very easy decision to make. So that, for me, is what I try to manage on a day-to-day basis. And God has always, hit me upside my head and reminded me, let me do it. Let me do it. Yeah. You do your part, but let me do the rest.
With that being said, everything that you've done in the industry is really impressive. And there are a lot of people who are interested in being a part of the entertainment industry, and specifically young people. So what advice would you give them, like the one thing that you think is extremely important? What would you tell them?
Don't come if you're not called. It is the wrong business to play around in. I really feel, especially if you are of faith, you have to really ask yourself, did God call me? Why do I want to be there? What do I want to do? And how does that align with his purpose? Now, if he's called you, then you must come. And you must do it without worrying about what your family's going to think or your friends are going to think. You must step out on faith and you must come. But the way to be successful is to commit yourself to service and learn the business. Whether you're an actor, whether you want to be a director or a producer or an executive, you got to learn. And I think too many people see the end result, which is, oh, I see someone on the screen, the big screen or the small screen in terms of television, and they want that. You don't even understand what is required to get that. And you can get that, for sure. If that's what God has planned for you, it will happen. But the way to begin to receive that is to commit yourself to learn, to be humble, and to not have fear, and get started.
Awesome. We actually have a question from a Facebook user. It's Hetty Bethany asks, where does he see the movie industry and faith-based projects in the future to reach a much younger audience?
I see the movie industry, movies I don't think are ever going to go out of style. And no matter how many different ways there will be for people to actually see content, because I think the way that people are going to the theater will continue to change. And what that will look like in 5-10 years, I don't know. I mean, who knew that Netflix was going to be what Netflix is? Didn't exist. Who knew Blockbuster was going to be out of business? Who knew? Exactly. So I don't know, but I do know that people will always want great stories. And so if you're in the great storytelling business, you're always going to be in business. So you have to just always adapt, though. Maybe the movie you could make for $5 million, now you have to make it for $2 million. Maybe the movie you make for $20 million, you have to make for $15 million. But at the end of the day, great stories have always been universal and timeless, and they will continue to be that. And I don't think that's exclusive for the faith-based content or not. I think that the key is finding great stories and to tell stories because that's what you're passionate about. I think sometimes we look at film as the business, and that is important, but it all starts with, why am I connecting with this story, and why do I want to tell it?
Awesome. And so I read that you observed the Sabbath,
Yes.
which is today, right?
Yeah, tonight.
Yes, tonight. So my last question to you is, what will you do this evening with your unplugged time off?
I need to go to Jersey to see my older brother and his wife and my 2 nieces.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we are so excited to talk to you today, DeVon. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing what you guys stand for in the future.